So how do you want this to go, Jay?
Okay, so just by way of an introduction, I'm not sure if you have managed to read much about the Go School, but it's a fairly new initiative, just about 18 months or so old, and it aims to empower young people from difficult backgrounds to become global citizens by exposing them to enlightened ideas and to basic life skills they can use to transform their lives, right? And we want to provide them with a sense of community so they can sustain the changes, right? And this open talks program is one important part of the overall package, right? And it brings like-minded people who are kind of inspirational to share their stories and insights. And gradually, the Go School is building up a library of these, a bit like TED Talks in a way, but kind of more from the region and targeted more at this particular group of fellows, we call them, the young social entrepreneurs like Stephanie on this call. So that's the background, and congratulations, you've been selected as the inspirational person of the month.
Thank you so much. I don't think, yeah, I hope I can be of any help and
Yeah.
get
So
people.
when I first met you 30 years ago or so, you're a diving instructor and you're running a tourism business. And now, if we look at the links online to Parley, we see your life is completely changed. So perhaps you could tell us a bit about your story and how you got involved in Parley.
Yeah, being a diver, I've always loved the ocean, and since I was 14, I've been diving. And that time, not many Maldivians had the chance to dive and actually see the underwater. So when I went and we didn't have opportunities either to do diving, basically, in the Maldives. As being a Maldivian, as a young Maldivian, we didn't have that opportunity. So what I did was, when I was studying in Singapore and places, we went diving to Sentosa, and we got the opportunity to dive, and fortunately, one of my friend's dad, who was in the Singapore Armed Forces, managed to get us diving. I was not certified though, so I just dived with the instructors, and I mean, it's always been my thing. So I went on to study, and I went on to do journalism, and photography was one of my passions, and probably one of my stronger things is telling stories through photographs. So I did a lot of photography in the 80s in the Maldives, and did also a lot of photo stories for UNFPA, UNICEF and things like places like that for the Maldives, and we did communicate a lot through photography. And then being interested in diving, when I came back after studies to the Maldives, I realized that they still didn't have an opportunity to dive for the locals. So I decided that we will set up a place where we can take kids snorkeling. And then I met my partner, who was a diving instructor, and we set up the first diving school in Parle for the locals, mainly to train the locals. So all the uncertified divers who were already diving and actually having a lot of problems, came in and did their dive master, and they trained to become professionals. So in that sense, we trained over about, I think, 700 dive professionals throughout, the thing. And then at that point, I think even today, I think, most of the locals working professionally has the older ones at least have come through our doors at a point and got motivated to be the advocates for the ocean. And we not only certify and teach them, I was not interested to be teaching diving, but I had to become an instructor because a lot of the locals who were diving didn't speak that well English or didn't know physics that well. So all the material was in English. So I had to translate. So I translated all the PADI material. And then PADI didn't accept it because it has to be verified by a professional instructor or a dive master. And there was only two at that point in Maldives, locals. and they are at that time there was not much support from that, and so I became an instructor, and in that sense I could use the material I translate. So Paddy accepted all the material and the exams alongside similarly, and then we got them certified properly. So yeah, that's how we started. And then even during the dive center days, we started a program with the schools where we took kids out snorkeling to show them the reef. Because being a local, though we are surrounded by sea, we don't really go into the sea. Half of us can't swim. I mean, if you look at it even today, if you go into a school, there's more kids who have been to a zoo that's outside of the Maldives than those who have put on a mask and seen the reef. So this is still the reality, even though we started a long time ago. So one of my thing was to get people in the water, and we did snorkeling for teachers to get their passion, to get their interest, so they will pass that on to kids, and get the kids to have these opportunities. So good. And fast forward to today, there are like 6 or 7 dive centers around Male and Hulumale and Vilingili, and most of the instructors working came out of our professionally started working with us, or one time or another they have been through our thing. So we are I'm very happy to see the advocacy and the advocates and new ocean. We created this group of people that are locals who actually can see what is happening with climate change and everything in our diving, in our reefs, in our oceans, and then actually it will be easier to use them to pass on the message to someone who is getting to know the oceans. So basically that was my intention. And then 8 years ago, I heard about Parle for the oceans. And in Maldives, as you know, we have a lot of issues. We are very vulnerable to climate change, right? Anything that happens to the ocean, we are the first people to actually feel it. Be it a typhoon in the Indian Ocean, in the Bay of Bengal or something, we get extreme waves. And if we have a high tide, we have the islands flooding, our water table going completely salt water. So we though we don't talk about it, and we don't really realize what is happening with the climate change, we do every day, we live with it. So trying to get that out, it's a very harsh topic, it's a very sad topic, so we need to put it out in a way that people don't feel helpless too. And I feel helpless, honestly, but to the point where when we give the message on, we have to be positive. And I think that's what we try to do with Parle. And I met Parle for the oceans, and one of our biggest problems other than climate change is our garbage and waste. That every piece of waste we create, even today, is ending up in the environment, because we burn all the waste we create from the 200 or from the 150 or so resorts, from the 200,000 or 400,000 population. Every piece of waste we create is burnt or dumped into the ocean. So though we say we are not industrial and we don't have a carbon footprint, or we don't emit any gases, 24/7 we have a garbage burning, and 40% of or 50% of it is forever chemicals like plastics, textiles, packaging and things like that, because everything to the Maldives is imported, and everything that is imported has a packaging on it. So these were always issues that I wondered how we could do. And Parle for the oceans was a very niche kind of a way of actually bringing that message on to people. Like they people think Parle as in the Maldives as a group of people that's only collecting plastics and just recycling it. We are not actually just that. We are actually more than that. In Maldives, we started the collection of plastic for recycling because it was so needed. And it would be easier to convince people the amount if you showed them volume, the amount of plastics that is, that's intercepted. So we changed the strategy. Actually, Parle started doing something very different. And we started going into the communities, and when we started, it was a very politically, difficult time. If we go in and work with one group of people, the other group of people do not want to participate because of the political, rivalry and competition between. So we try to be very, how would I say, very, very unaligned to any of these parties, and we started advocating for the environment. And and a little bit about Parle. Parle is an organization that works to protect the oceans. Basically, to say, they were formed by designers, a bunch of designers that realized after meeting Captain Paul Watson that, ocean was everything. And designers were the people who are actually creating these things that end up in the ocean. That we are losing the biodiversity because of the products that we put out and design, the way it is designed. So basically, we need to change the design, redesign the way we look at life. So this started, and Parle started going to companies, and actually changing the production line. Like a company like Adidas that they partnered with, use virgin plastic in all their products. So they said, okay, let's use ocean recycled plastic. And to make it more attractive to communicate the ocean message, we said ocean plastic. So Parle kind of, created this ocean plastic talk and change it into, basically it's just avoiding virgin plastic, but using recycled plastic, which a lot of people do already use. But the story for the oceans and connecting to the oceans, happened with that, with the ocean run. In India alone, I think a few million people ran last year for the ocean run with Adidas and Parle run. So things like that, and changing designers, working with UNEP, working with International Chamber of Commerce to change the ISO packaging standards. These are everything that we work with on a scale before we trying to reach the individual, because there's so much an individual can do. The whole thing needs to change. Like, we wouldn't have plastic in a phone we buy if it was not an ISO standard for it to be packaged in a certain way. So if you look at it today, a lot of big companies like TV companies like Sony have changed their packaging. They don't use styrofoam anymore. They use cardboard. They use, so there is a change in these things, and the design aspect. So it's designed is changing. So Parle has lobbied globally at these levels to change and to get this mindset onto these producers. In the Maldives, what we started was, and they have a strategy called AIR, Avoid, Intercept, Redesign. So we work on that strategy where we say, let's avoid not only plastic, yes, but not only plastic. You can avoid all the bad material, forever chemicals like fertilizers we use, pesticides we use, hormones we use, and avoid any bad stuff. So A of the AIR is for avoid your footprint, avoid anything that will increase your footprint. So let's reduce our carbon footprint. Then I, intercept, which means if you are using something, let's intercept it and dispose it responsibly. Let's find a way to dispose it responsibly. Let's intercept it, let's recycle it, let's do it right. So while you change, so you realize how much you have of a certain plastic, maybe a packaging that you can change. If you start intercepting, you will realize it, and you will say, okay, let me change this piece of food packaging I'm buying every day. Let me buy a different packaged material product or something like that. So intercept while you are changing, and redesign is redesigning. For example, a simple redesigning is redesigning the material in the end. That's the long-term goal. Finding a material as fantastic as plastic, but not as forever as plastic. For example, not as harsh as plastic. Doesn't have that chemical. So the redesign at our level, how we promote is, for example, if you are using a plastic clothespin, change it to a wooden one. If in a beach cleanup we take at least over 100 pieces of these, it's so easily break, and it's a plastic piece. If it is wooden, even if it breaks, it's it's wood. It doesn't emit the chemicals, and it doesn't become microplastic, or something doesn't eat it and kill itself, or things like that. So redesign, if you're buying something, think before you buy it and replace it. a simple thing as a cloth hanger. Don't buy a plastic cloth hanger, buy a, wire one or a wooden one, so things like that. So we actually go into, and every Ramadan in Maldives, everybody change the kitchen stuff. And we buy a lot of plastic melamine plates and things. So we say, no, buy stainless steel, go back to the stainless steel cups and stuff like you have in India, and places. It's much better than plastic. So we kind of use the air strategy to implement it. And we went into the schools and we opened up an air challenge where we get the school kids to be air compliant. For example, if they go for a school event, let it be single-use plastic free. If they go for a competition, let it be single-use plastic free. Don't take your plastic water bottles. Take a cooler, and if you go for a competition, don't take things that are so plastic free events. So we made it in such a way that there are 3 tiers that they can every year achieve. So one tier is like, for example, AR to 1025. When they have that, then a catalog opens and they can claim a reward for the school, and then they move on to the next year. So it kind of builds up, and because we really don't want to and all the rewards are rewards that the school can use, develop the skills, and actually make the school plastic free, and make it easier for them to do things single-use plastic free. So we kind of have been running that in last year, and this year we've started. So it kind of works very well to get air into it, and then to implement, going through the school and some schools and some islands. When you mean a school, it's if you look at a school, it represents 90% of the households of that island. So if we intercept from the 90% of the households the recyclable plastic they use, we actually reduce that 30% of the volume of plastics being burnt on that island. So we have reduced a lot in volume in that sense of what is going into the environment. And we do beach cleanups. We have done over almost 420 beach cleanups since we started 6.5 years ago. And that means every week a beach cleanup. So we have diverted so much of the plastic that would otherwise again be taken into the ocean and things like that. So we try to work with people very gently persuading them to kind of understand the whole thing, that don't feel useless. Every little thing we do, and if you have a whole community doing it, it helps. Like if you are in a let's say if you are in a rural area in India and you feel helpless, if you start doing it and getting people on board behind you with your belief and your focus, you will get recognition, and you can get funding, and you can do bigger things. But you have to start slowly. You can't expect somebody to come and hand out a bunch of funds or a bunch of things that just to do it. And it has become the trend. We have global these funding agents. We have done something very wrong in the last 10-15 years by giving everything to be done for like grants and things like that for projects, a timed project. Within that project period, this NGO is very active, and then the funding is stopped. The sustainability is not focused. So we need to change the priorities and change the way we do things. And as individuals who really believe that there needs to be a change, and I believe that there needs to be a change, we could get more people on board behind us. And it takes sometimes. People say that no, that doesn't work, and we need to be. But for me, also the media thing. We need to now, everything we do has to be social media, and a few thousand people have to like it for you to feel good about what you do. It's not that. You can do something and feel good, and if you can't feel good about the little things you do, there's no point in trying to talk about it. I really feel that way. So I think the good we do has to be genuine more than public, in the sense media, social media, the way it is going, the current trend for young people. So what we do is we say, we will do this, we will do it, but if you want to put on social media, that's you cannot co-brand with Parle or co-brand unless it is a partnership and you have done it for a few months. you know. So if you do cleanups with us, you have to do continuously and dedicatedly what you commit for a year or so before you can, you know, say you're working with Parle Maldives and, you know, things like that. So you have to be genuine. We really are very careful who we are actually, or what events we are, you know, social media exposing it on social media and things like that. So we have kept a very low profile on that, but we have done huge, and we have diverted over 2,200 metric tons of plastic from the Maldives for recycling. And if we haven't done that, this 2,200 tons would have been burnt. And imagine the carbon footprint of the carbon volume, simply what we have emitted to the atmosphere from the Maldives.
Mm-hmm.
So one organization alone with 15 people total can do something that's strong, and we can just persuade gently people. If people can believe, and if we can convince them to believe, they change. And it's very easy to make people believe actually in doing the right thing, given the opportunity. We try to say Parle is always the back end. For example, don't do cleanups just for the sake of doing a cleanup. If you do a cleanup, make sure what you take out, at least the plastics comes to us for recycling. What's the point of doing a beach cleanup and then dumping it into the waste, you know, landfill and burning it? I mean, it might as well stay on the beach for a while until, you know, somebody finds a better solution, instead of, you know, speeding up the burn or the emissions. So we try to say, if you're doing cleanups, come and give and do it right, and at least segregate what we can recycle. For example, the aluminum cans, there are people buying it. You know, in Maldives, the thing is there's no waste, because like in India or Sri Lanka, where landfill is always, you know, people collect the plastics to sell it. Here, there's no, the value, there's a different mindset in the Maldives, where people are not, you know, we can never pay something that will help the people actually for, like they pay in India or Sri Lanka for the collectors. And where there is this kind of collection, you know, where there is this kind of waste pickers, what is happening is gangs are forming, and there's a you know, leader who is actually you know, using the most vulnerable with a few pennies to get these out of the worst environmental areas, and paying them very little for that, because they are desperate. So we feel that, and Parle is working globally as well. We are trying to go into India as well to make waste pickers actually a bit more trendy, cool, you know, trying to say that they're not just waste pickers, they are environmental, you know. So we have just started in India, in Andhra Pradesh. They did a huge cleanup with, I think, 200,000 people or something like that came out, and 70 kilometers of beach line in Andhra Pradesh was done, cleaned up. And so these are the things that that will take a long time, I think, to do properly. It will take a long time before the mindset is changed, and people kind of resist initially, unless it's a big project, unless there is a, you know, huge office and people are feeling that they are, you know, doing it. People tend not to do it, but we try to get communities to do it, because it's their community. If they cannot be proud of that, their community, then there's nothing we can do as Parle or as another organization, you know, to go in and try to make them more compliant. They have to do it, and we might not be there forever. So what we set up has to actually be able for the community to follow and actually continue. Because Parle is an NGO, is a global NGO. It might not be here, you know, given the time. I mean, we don't know. But what we set up is going to continue if the community wants to do it. And that's how we are setting it up. So, yeah, that's how I got involved in Parle, because I like the way they allow us to do and create this blueprint for them and for the global, you know, work that we do.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Shaahina. I'm sure there's some questions coming up, but a couple from me, if I can get in there first. One is about change, right? Because this Go School program is really aimed at change makers, right? And you're a change maker. And you talked about trying to get people to change their behavior using the avoid, intercept, redesign philosophy, the AIR philosophy, right? And in my experience, it's really difficult to sustain change. If people get into habits, and they're kind of used to doing things in a certain way, and it's really difficult to get people to kick the habit. It's like quitting smoking or something like that. We're all sort of addicted to our ways of life. So what have you learned about how to sustain those kinds of behavioral changes?
For me, I think it's difficult. It is difficult. Like, for example, especially in a place like Maldives, where you go and say, hey, don't drink from a plastic bottle. We don't have water, first of all. Even we have to go and buy the plastic bottle to drink in an island sometimes, because there's no filtered water. But basically, what we do is we say, do whatever we can. And we try to, at least, focus on interception then, and then change. But to get to not just plastic and Parle, but my experience in how to change somebody is making them believe. If they do not believe, then it's very difficult to change. You just have to agree that, okay, this person won't change, let's try with another person. But what I find with communities is you sometimes need to find that one champion in that community, that one champion who does not give up, who keeps doing it and doing it and doing it and getting people rolling around them. So in the few communities that we work, we have that champion, that person who has been craving to do something good for their community, who believes that environment is something that they need, who believes and who loves the ocean, in this case of ocean, and come out and really get their community riled up, and ask for others also to join in. For example, companies, they reach out for their CSRs and put bins around, put segregation things and things like that. So what we feel is that that there's two levels we can work with. One is, of course, as long as the bottle is produced, or as long as that soft drink bottle is there, people will drink it. Yes, but they will have to change, and they will change if we change. If we go for an option of canned drinks more than plastic bottle drinks, Maldives is a country that exports. If we export all the canned drinks, then at least we solve one problem. But we have to also handle the cans, the waste that comes with the can, and waste management has to come in. Infrastructure has to come in. Companies have to change. Parle do not believe that recycling is a solution, really, because recycling again puts out plastic. We believe the material has to change. So that's what the end goal of Parle is, to actually find a material change and material revolution. And they work with people like Biofabricate and people like that, who are actually making, for example, leather out of mushrooms and things like that. So the material has to change, for example, and we believe in that. And until that, we have to find temporary, put plasters around leaks, and main focus is to reduce what is going into the ocean, whether it is burnt and emissions, or whether it is thrown directly. In Maldives, we have all boats, like you have cars and buses in India, and we throw everything from the boats into the ocean. Even the oil we change goes into the ocean. It's much more than plastic. So we are working on all levels to create that awareness. We can't find solutions for everything, but talk about, at least start the conversation around it, So that's what we do.
Okay, thanks. And let me open it up, because I see a few people putting questions on chat. Madhuri, Anita, I see inputs from you. I can't actually read the chat. Perhaps you could come in. Madhuri, you want to come in next?
I'll let the others go first, no problem.
So, Anita?
Sorry, I can read the question. What Parle does to ensure, of course, yes, we have big companies trying to, justify what they haven't done all these days by saying extended producer responsibility. We are willing to pay for collection, to the government some money. All the governments around the world have taxes and stuff for environment tax, this tax and that tax, but nothing has really happened. It doesn't really go into purely environment. Unless we people change and show them and demand proper things, it will take time. It will not happen, but big companies will always play that role, and we just have to be, we have to be strong enough to say no to their products, so they have to change. For example, if you don't take a product that has plastic and replace our craving to another product that's more compliant, they will, if they lose the millions of customers they have, they will definitely want to be the lead player. So sooner or later these big companies will have to change if we keep going and hitting them on different things and changing the mindset of the people. For example, if 60% of the islands here says they are not going to allow plastic bottled soft drinks to come onto the island, they will only bring cans onto the island. The bottle manufacturer has to manufacture in cans, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean.
Yep, we get it. Okay, Madhuri, do you want to come in?
Yeah. So I just want to say we've got about 5 minutes to go, after which we'll take a 5-minute break because this is the new Zoom thing. So if you're cut off, please wait 5 minutes and click back in. And Shaahina, I totally agree with you. I was actually saying what about parleying with the enemy, which is that, if you have people who don't actually want to listen to you at all. I mean, in the sense they might know it intuitively, or have high ideals, but when it comes to big money, big industry, etc., how do you deal with them? I mean, I heard you saying earlier that you were gentle in your approach, and I wonder if a gentle approach actually works with when you encounter that sort of big nexus of industry and government and all of that.
Yeah, in our case, we have taken we have put our foot down and said no, we cannot collaborate or communicate with bigger companies, even if they pay for the full operations of Parle here. So we will not collaborate unless they commit and they say they have a phase out plan. They have they have some kind of like production in the Maldives in the next 3 years will change to glass bottles and cans, or things like that. Unless there is a value added, assured change, we have not wanted to. But I think we also collaborate with them in many ways. We communicate with them. We have very good relationships with them. Unless we keep talking and not giving in and making them also understand why we are like this, why we are rebelling this, why we are so strong in our beliefs, I think it slowly changes. And we need that CEO in that company to feel sorry for, or see the reality of what is happening with their products. I mean, I don't think if anybody genuinely takes their corporate hat off and look at the social side of what their companies are doing, they will feel it. They have to feel it. So we need to connect them to this reality. There's no chance for us to be this ignorant anymore. I think in the next 2-3 years, you will see these big companies changing because they have to change. And you can see them changing now. For example, one of the biggest companies have changed to all recycled plastic in their plastic products. And then they are looking at other packaging options. And there's basically 3 or 4 big companies that puts out maybe over 70% of the plastic, single-use plastic or throwaway plastics that we are making. So it needs to come from within. And when the right thing becomes more of us, where we purchase. For example, if I purchase something, I will definitely not purchase something that's directly, throwaway based. Then, I would always look for the option. And there's more people doing that. There will be more of those options. Right now, it's convenience. It's how on the go, we are quick. We live such a fast-paced life. Like already we started with this conversation, TikTok, Twitter, all these things that are. So it's so much at your fingertips that you want your life to be also that fast. And that's the reality. And people, have an issue with that. And there's going to be more issues with this fast-paced, ways of doing things. And we need to go into the schools. We need to get the champion in that school to believe and then change the way we kind of do things, where we teach kids to do things. So, 148 out of 213 schools we work with, which means we work with all the schools, and And we do go to these schools, we visit these islands, and we take the kids snorkeling. We have a day out with them, we do a cleanup. Every opportunity we have with them is an outside classroom. It's a memorable, it's something that they can grow up and they'll still remember. What we remember from school is mostly our picnics or an outing or a field trip, right? So we want that kind of more NGOs. We are actually going to launch a NGO Air Challenge, where we are trying to actually create this group of youth who would give these experiences to the schools, who would actually complement the school air challenges we do and the school work we do. And we are not only going to go and talk about plastics. Parle is going to expand into fertilizers and pesticides and these forever chemicals that we tend to have forgotten, and the ministries need that help too, and WHO needs that kind of, their standards to be actually delivered to the community in a way the community understands. Sometimes we do the messaging also. Parle has a methodology that we do very interpersonal kind of things. We go into a community, we target groups to do presentations about the ocean. For example, if I have a kindergarten bunch of 10 to 6-year-olds, we will just show a little video of birds eating plastic, fish eating plastic, and then have that conversation why we should not be throwing it. But when you go to 3, 4, 5, then we go into corals and say why we should be worried about climate change, because these corals need a certain temperature, a certain and that the ocean gives us the oxygen, because they learn in their school syllabus photosynthesis. So we teach them how the ocean photosynthesizes and gives us the second breath that we take. It's not only it's still not in our syllabus that the oceans give us our second breath. We still think, it's the trees and we should plant everything, it has changed, and the syllabus and the curriculum have not changed to the new findings. Climate change is such a thing that we actually don't have data to go on. Or today's curriculum, if we develop a curriculum based on today's climate change, predictions and things, 2 years down the road, this will be wrong. This might not be the curriculum you want. So we can't change a curriculum or a system of education actually for climate change. We need to actually have people targeting, at that moment, at those issues. We are firefighting now with climate change. Like in Maldives, we are predicting an El Nino coral bleaching event this April, May. It's going to kill 90% of the reef if it hits us. We need to get kids to go and see if the corals are becoming white and at least know what is happening. So we need to be very, and talking about curriculum, we need to have a extracurricular curriculum that is always updated and work with CSOs and NGOs and international bodies like UN, UNDP, UNEP, targeting using the locals for that specific issue in that community. For example, the issue I have with climate change might not be the issue you have with climate change. It might be very different. We can't look at every issue in a similar way. So, curriculum is very old school. We need to go and rethink and redesign our education of how we actually speak to communities. For example, when we talk to fishermen in the Maldives, they don't even realize that where they go and see the tuna, mostly it's a patch of garbage. It's a floating net where the little bait fish is, so the tuna comes. They don't even see that unless you go and talk to them and they say, oh yeah, it's a oevali. We call it an oevali, floating patch of, kind of debris. And, they don't see the plastic in it. But now we have started talking to them. They send pictures of these. It's very fascinating that they suddenly it clicks to them and say the bottles they throw away are in these oevali, places, and they open a stomach of a fish and they see these bottles and they connect these two. Before they think it's only the reef fish that has plastic in their bellies, not the ocean fish like tuna. Our tuna will never have it because it's in the blue sea away from land. But no, it's not true. It's so we need to actually talk to people. We can't have a blanket presentation where 20 of us are trained to give the same presentation. We need to have people trained to actually look at your audience and actually engage your audience. And this is the training of trainers and the new leaders for this kind of work needs to focus on. I mean, we actually have a template. Everybody says, oh, we have a template. Can you use this for plastic education? That template created probably in, let's say, in South Africa is not the template in Maldives we could use. We have to change it to our template. So we need to, as change makers, we need to now make this change of how we actually get people to think of education and think of this extra education that we need to give, or talk about climate change, or talk about, even pesticides or birth control even. You need to health, all the microplastics and health. In Maldives, we have has more cancers than ever and infertility than ever. And these are all linked now to these forever chemicals that we use in fertilizers, hormones, chemical, all these things that we use. So we have to be careful. We have to change how we make change makers, how we address the youth. We can't have a group of youth and do a 3-day thing and say, oh, you are now ready to go and talk to communities about. Yes, they are ready, but we need to give them something for their community. We need to look at where they will be working, and we need to also teach them how to think, to adapt it to their thing, not two very. So for example, in India, 2 different states could have 2 different mindsets. We need to tell those 2 minds how to actually use their mind for their, not for the general change. For general change, it's very easy for us to discuss. We can Google, get facts, and we can, go on and do a fantastic presentation. And now you have artificial intelligence that could even create your speech. But, you need to know what you have at your hands and your 360 that you are working with. And that, I think, is something we are missing while we train the trainers.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Shaahina. Paloma, I think there's another question or two from Anita, is it? Amrita.
Yeah. Hi,
yes.
Jonathan. Sorry, I'm going to just jump in because I have to. Unfortunately, I'm a little pressed for time, and I will have to jump off quickly. Shaahina, what you have spoken about resonates very deeply with me. About the fact that you say that one template cannot work across cultures and across communities. Totally agree with you on that. But I think my experience, at least for the past 5 years, has been that one of the ways that we can start that change process and a sustained change process is by making sure that we train teachers instead of training trainers and trying to push them into schools. How about we work with teachers and we help them integrate whatever your learnings are into their existing curriculum. So whether it's an IGCSE or a CBSE or an IB curriculum, because they know how to play with the information, to work with the information that Parle is providing, they'll know how to integrate it into any concept that they're teaching. And I would love to work with you on this bit if it ever comes up with Parle, and you want some help. Just do give a shout out to us over here at the Goa School. More than happy to pitch in and let you share with you what our learnings are, and also ideate with you on this. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, we do want to work with teacher trainers, but what happens is there's so much work we've looked into going into teacher training, university and teacher training, but there's so much, and the thing is with all the syllabuses, GCSE, every topic you teach can be linked to a climate change, thing, but we need to teach the people to link it, link it to what is happening. And I think that link, if we can have those professors or teacher training college, lecturers to understand, and not be so rigid in just going by the thing, we need to do it. And I'm totally new to this kind of training. I'm more of a field person, and I deal directly with them. I mean, on an outside their work environment, we do have fantastic discussions, and a lot of teacher trainers are actually with us, and they do work with us. Hopefully it will take a while to change.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Paloma, do we have any other questions on the chat or any other people with a hand up?
So there was just one from Josna about the opportunity to collaborate with Parle for creating awareness.
Oh yeah, everyone wants to go to Maldives. Help out. Me too. Me first. But no, really fascinating initiative. So yeah, how can people participate in your program, Shaahina, or at least in the sharing the aims?
Yeah, if you are in the Maldives, yes, you can join us in a cleanup or in a presentation with the schools that we do, or an activity. But in India, if you're doing something, we could also go online and talk to your people to change the mindset, and we could exchange it both ways. Once we start, I think, with agriculture component, not the oceans, I think I might need your help a lot, because in India, you probably deal more with organic, things than us here, where we import all the pesticides and things from all over the world. I don't even know whether they have a, control on those things. So maybe it will be very interesting to, reach out to individuals who are very keen to actually, or expertise in organic, like home gardening and things like that, where we can have small communities where we do. Remember some time back, we had a lot of home gardening, and I think that needs to come back instead of this huge pesticide. You know what they do in the Maldives? They put the pesticides in a well, and they use a pump and just spray it from the well. So the pesticides are not only, into the spray, but it goes into the water table. So, everything has these things. These issues are huge in the Maldives.
Yeah.
And we are looking into it. We are actually getting this information from the islands. Actually, we want to know the ground zero situation before we ask for any expertise help, because there are standard things you could do, but we don't know what the ground zero situation is before we can actually find a way to reach out to the people.
Yeah. So one thing that occurs to me is that climate change is obviously a global issue, and you guys are doing an amazing job in your own yard, in Maldives. But as you try to reach out further and increase the scale of what you're doing, you're having to form partnerships. And you talked a bit about the partnerships you have with these all the schools in Maldives, which is great. And you talked about the need for compliance, so checking that each group is actually complying with the principles and so on. In the same way, when you decided to partner with Parle in order to increase the scale of your influence, maybe Parle also had compliance criteria that you have to meet. And I wonder, there's obviously some gains in forming these kinds of partnerships with India or Parle or schools in Maldives. But is there a downside, that your own voice is lost, and you're having to comply with other people's decisions and standards and so on?
I think we always do, Jay, and it's just for me, we feel that, okay, if it's too difficult, then we go on and do little things. If we can't form a partnership, for example, we have partnerships with the government, but it's very difficult to change a government. But they also have on their mandate the things we do, and we say, look, we are doing it for you. We are giving you that back end. At least engage us. And then it took a while. It took 3 or 4 years before we get invited to policy roundtables. We get invited to discussions, high-level discussions, decision-making level. We are in the advisory boards. So we have within it took us 4 to 5 years to even be government, to even say, like, oh yeah, they are actually doing something that we are not doing, and we are probably one of the only good things that's happening in terms of waste, and they have recognized that. So what I feel is we can't do everything. We can't form all these partnerships, and we can't work. So we are very focused on what we do, and we are not afraid to say no to, like, we don't have time, or we don't have the capacity, or we don't over stress ourselves. I want to go home and be able to sleep. Simple as that. and my conscience needs to be clear. So we actually work very, very selectively in that sense. We also work together. We can't be doing things for everyone, but we participate, we contribute. Whatever they need, we contribute. And mostly it is back end. For example, if it's a collection, we give bags, gloves, we do, and they do their thing, and then we facilitate it to come to us instead of going into the landfill. So these are the back end. We have done such a, huge, we are a logistical, it's very challenging here, logistically, Jay. So we have from north to south, the programs we have, it takes a lot of time from us to coordinate. And we can't be worried about we are not worried about, if somebody wants to do, it's everybody's thing. We need to do it. So that's how, I mean, with partnerships we select. Sadly, we have to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Good. Paloma, are there any other questions there or comments?
So no questions, but just I think Venkatesh, do you have something you'd like to talk about?
Hi, I'm sorry I was a bit late joining the talk, so I missed the first few minutes. But I can relate a lot to what Shaahina is saying. I run an NGO in Goa for marine conservation, and as a part of our charter, we also do marine awareness programs in schools. We are not doing the kind of exemplary work you are doing, Shaahina. On a much smaller scale, we approach all the schools, primarily government-aided schools, which are in need of this kind of information.
Okay.
So they're cut off. Of course, everybody's got a TV now. Everybody's got Discovery and National Geographic, which is good for us because it makes our work a little bit easier. But we do give them a lot more information, particularly about what's in our own backyard. As you said, we have to tailor the information to our local, environment, rather than showing them images from somewhere very, very distant and they can't relate to it. So that's why we take photographs from our own Arabian Sea and then show it to them. And I think they appreciate that much better. And as I always have a way of making a joke with my Goan friends, I say that the only fish you know is what is on your plate. There are so many more in the sea. Unfortunately, you don't have access to that. So because not many people dive, not many people snorkel. And of course, we don't have your good luck in having crystal clear waters in our backyards. For example, today we have about 1 or 2 meters visibility. If I can see my feet, I'm very lucky. But I think we have made a lot of changes. I get a lot of phone calls from students, from their parents, and they come back either abusing me or thanking me, whichever way it goes. They abuse me because they say, "What have you taught my son? I threw something out today and he was abusing me." So I said, "Well, he should, because you're screwing up his future."
Yes.
It's satisfying work, even in what little we do. Yeah. Our main work is, of course, transplantation of coral, which we are trying to increase the reef sizes and thereby helping the local fishermen who are, facing dwindling catches, and also to increase the quality of the ocean, of the sea, which is a long-term project. Obviously, we are doing it on a very small scale. Right now, we've got about 500 fragments out there, and we need to go every month and clean it of algae and invasive materials, and then making sure we measure them to record growth. So again, I can relate to what you were saying about funders coming about all kinds of, different demands, which may not actually agree with our projects. Because for me, to be very honest, socio-economic word is something which is taboo for me. I would be very happy if this planet lost half the population. I'm not worried about the race, caste, creed, color. It doesn't matter. I think the world would be a much better place for everything else living in it if we reduced our burden on it. But obviously, that's not going to happen. So I would concentrate on projects which are more environment centric, and that's what where my interest lies. So I try and tailor my proposals only to that end. Of course, there are benefits for us, obviously. As a knock-on effect, you get cleaner air, you get cleaner water, you can actually breathe because of cleaner oceans. Because as most people, I'm preaching to the choir here, I know that, but most people are not aware that most of the oxygen that we breathe comes from the oceans. So this is one line I always use in my presentations, and it's a big shock for them. And that's when they realize the importance of the oceans, even if they themselves are living in a landlocked place. And they feel, why should we bother about the oceans? So I just wanted to add that. Sorry, I'm cutting into your time.
No, that makes sense.
Thanks, Venkatesh. And Madhuri, I think you had a question.
Yes, I have a funny question actually. I will start the little story. So you know how this ChatGPT thing went viral a couple of days ago, and I was trying it out, which is this AI chatbot that gives you strategies on how to change things, right? I mean, it gives you anything basically. So I was talking to it about strategies and how to change life and the climate. And I was talking about the urgency of it and how we could do things. And of course, it came up with one strategy, which was, yes, the government needs to partner with all these people to do all this and make sure that, you know, everything's done. And then I said, and what can an NGO do? And then the NGO has to partner with all these people and it'll get it done. And then, you know, they just kept going round in a loop. And I was like, even the AI chatbot, you know, can't see a clear-cut route. And they keep saying partner with everyone and talk to everyone, and all this building awareness takes years. And surely we are, you know, surely we're in a place where everything is quite a bit more urgent than that. And I was just wondering, therefore, whether it's not the role of the government to just cut off, you know, ban plastics completely, or just, you know, make sure that they take 5 or 6 huge sort of national, international actions by which we, you know, we can do that AIR intercept thing by law, so that then, you know, it's not up to us partnering and talking and gathering with other people and taking 85 years about it. You know, it just happens. And I was wondering what your view was on that. And by the way, I'll tell you the ChatGPT view on that. They said the government also needs to be made aware, because there's no one aware inside the government about what has to be done. And I was like, there you go. But I won't accept that as an answer. Please, Shaahina.
Actually, our Maldives government has put the air strategy into their strategic action plan. It's on the 10-year, 15-year action plan, and we have gone into it. But the governments, what happens is that the whole thing is, we have the ADBs, the World Bank, you guys know more about that than I do. We have all of them kind of giving a lot of funding for development. And a lot of these developments have this old template where gender equality, like 50% has to be women, 50% has to be, 50%. Nothing really is true. I mean, if you look at it, some of the things we don't have to so focus on that. We have to re-strategize the template of this World Bank ADB. They kind of hold governments hostage many times of their funding or their projects. They can't do anything unless their consultant comes and certify it, or their standard is met, or they don't see the urgency on the ground. And the consultants change. 3 years, we might have one consultant coming, and then suddenly he moves to another position, and then we have a new guy coming and starting. We have had waste management program with over $200 million for the last 10-15 years. We have a fantastic incinerator and an island that is set up, waste to energy, that's been there for 10 years and not in operation. They have invested over $80 million in that. So we have all these fantastic, and that has the capacity to handle all the waste of the Maldives. So we have these governments. I think it's more than the government. It is the international organizations. I believe they can make a government change like that. If ADB, World Bank, and everybody puts their head together, especially a country like Maldives where we depend on funding for our infrastructure and for these things, we really government can make a change if they would prioritize. And then they sit on their thing and say, oh, we need 5-year data of how the reefs have deteriorated. We don't have 5-year data because every time the data is different. We have waste. Our waste is changing so quickly. Today it could be plastic, tomorrow it could be something else. We cannot, give them, interpolate the data for them, the amount they want. These are all templates. We need to work with our gut now. It's come to the point where we need to either do it or don't do it. Do the right thing or don't. We don't have the time anymore. So governments need to push the fund organizations. I think the governments are too weak in that sense because they don't have the money. They have interests, but they don't have the money to run. And the budgets are hugely complemented with aid funds. So every sector you look, whether it's education, whether it's fisheries, whether it's environment, whether it is development, it is all kind of with major link to major project funding. And this is why the governments have their hands tied, I think, to change quickly as we would like them to change. When you sometimes when you sit inside, you realize that the civil servants are people like us. They believe in it, and they really want to get it done. But then you have that they have that funding, not everybody can be as stubborn as we are, but because we are independent, we can, say no and go out. But government, the civil service, they have to work with whatever they have. So I think we just need to rethink the old way of how these governments depend on consultancies and funding, that really the consultancy has to look at the urgency of that place where they are consulting to, I think.
Okay, thanks. I think our time is just about up. Paloma, Madhuri,
So there
is there
just
anything
about,
else that we need to do?
I
I will be in Delhi 29th to 4th.
Okay, so we'll see you 29th to 4th.
In Delhi, but they're not in. I think you guys are in Goa, right? No?
We are in Goa, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, some in Goa, some in Lucknow. Yeah. Okay, well then let me wrap up, and thank you very much, Shaahina, for sharing with us your experiences and insights, and the whole program is just so impressive what you've built over these years. As you said, it does have its own pace, and it takes time, and we need to be patient. And now I think many of the people who watch this open talk will want to follow in your footsteps and may want to contact you, some as volunteers and others just to get ideas on how to move forward. But thanks so much.